On today's show, the Nets take a big-time swing on Mikel Brown Jr. with the 6th pick in the 2026 NBA draft. I'll react to the decision and offer my top takeaways from Brooklyn's draft on today's episode of Locked On Nets.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets. I'm Erik Slater. On today's episode, I'm going to be recapping the first round of the 2026 NBA draft for the Nets, and Brooklyn came away with Mikel Brown Jr. at number 6, player I really like, and also Joshua Jefferson at number 28. Going to react to both of those picks with Lucas Kaplan right now. Let's go. All right, joining the pod now, we got Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily here for one of the biggest episodes of the year, the draft recap. The Nets come away from the 2026 NBA draft with Mikel Brown Jr. as their selection at number 6, highest pick of the Brooklyn era, highest pick for the Nets in the last 16 years since they took Derek Favors number 3 overall in 2010. And my takeaway from this pick is I love that the Nets took this swing. And this is a pick that I came away, really excited about. I've spoken about Mikel Brown Jr. throughout the pre-draft process, and I've said that he is the player outside of the top 4 that I was the most excited about, I thought had the most upside. And clearly the Nets saw a lot of that. They saw a lot of the intangibles in terms of the things they, heard from him during their meetings. There are numerous meetings with him throughout the pre-draft process. So a really good pick, in my opinion. We'll get more into the details of him as a player and what some of the guys in the Nets passed up. But Lucas, what do you think about the Nets come away with Mikel Brown Jr. at number 6 overall?
I'm down. I'm super down. I mean, he has the off the dribble shot making that is rare, not just at the college level, but among any NBA draft prospect. There's a worry that some of his lack of a mid-range game and maybe small sample size scoring at the rim maybe inflated his numbers. But listen, you can't look at him and not see the potential at the very least for a guy that can score from 30 feet out and at the rim and mix in some really audacious high-level passing. Like, it's the most exciting guard the Nets have drafted since I don't know when, the most exciting young player they've had on their team, as in rookie contracts guy, since I don't know when. It's hard to be too negative about this pick, notwithstanding the fact that they fell to 6. All right, they fell to 6 in the lottery. This is a pretty decent consolation prize, and like all things considered, I'm feeling better than I thought I would after learning that the Nets had fallen to 6 in a draft that clearly dropped off after the top 4. But like I said at the time, you never know. What are the odds that those 4 guys are going to be the 4 best players in the draft 5 years from now? It's not as high as you think.
Yeah. Full transparency. When Adam Silver sauntered up to that mic and said, with the 6th pick in the 2026 NBA draft, the Brooklyn Nets select, what percentage of you thought we were hearing some random name like Nate Amen or Adai Mara or whatever other guy you want to say?
I was pretty confident. I mean, especially after your interview with Mikel, they met with him 3 times. I think some of the Nate smoke dying down, not necessarily dying down, but shifting to more of, well, they really would like to add another mid-first round pick. They really like him, but they're doing all this intel on Mikel. Like, it just started to tread that way. And I was, as I've said, surprised there was nothing about Kingston. There was even less about Akov. I don't know why a lot of the betting sports books thought there was Akov. Like, we never heard anything about that. And like, the Nets keep some things quiet, but we've known who they've liked in the draft process over the last couple of years. And I was pretty confident. I don't know. Obviously, my stomach was turning a little bit, but really wasn't that surprised. Were you?
No. I mean, going in after, having spoken with Mikel Brown Jr. and Keaton Wagler on Monday and some things I heard from some people throughout the league, I was fairly confident that it was going to go Keaton Wagler at 5, Mikel Brown Jr. at 6. Still, there was a part of me, PTSD after last year's draft, thinking that there could be something random coming out at this 6th pick. But I did think Mikel Brown Jr. was the guy. And look, I think that it's a welcome sight for Nets fans to have a guy like this come in the door who has this kind of upside. And there was obviously all the conversation of the Nets drafted all these guards. They can't take another guard. I never subscribed to that. You didn't subscribe to that. And you look at, the point guards now, Mikel Brown Jr. compared to, Nolan Troy and Ben Saraf, who I think are the only 2 true point guards the Nets took last year. Mikel just has a different level of upside than Nolan Troy and Ben Saraf. And that's due to, all of the things that I've spoken about throughout this pre-draft process and the reasons why he was number 1 on my big board, my Nets-specific big board when I outlined it last week. It is all of the traits that he has, the intersection of positional size, ball handling, shooting, passing, and high-level athleticism. All of those things, he checks all those boxes more than any other player in this range for the Nets. And that's why I think he has the most upside. Now, there's obviously the questions about the decision-making was a little bit wonky at times, over 3 turnovers. He had some passes that really just probably made coaches pull their hair out. The shot selection wasn't always great. But after having spoken with him several times throughout the pre-draft process and just seeing the kind of kid he is, the IQ he has, hearing some stuff about his background, and you have all those skills, and then you have some of those intangibles in terms of, the worker personality that he has, the IQ, the self-awareness, I'm pretty confident that the Nets are going to be able to get a lot out of him. And that's why you have Jordi Fernandez, all of these coaches, this player development staff. Why else do you have that if not to get a guy with these types of tools and try to get the most out of him? And I think that the Nets are really excited. I mean, there was another War Room video like last year where the Nets look like they're ready to pop champagne bottles. I think Joe Tsai might have been chugging a Michelob Ultra in the corner or something. There were a lot of fist bumps, they were really fired up. And look, I get it. Like, Mikel's an exciting player.
Yeah, and, clearly I think the only mystery in this is whether the Clippers would throw them a curveball or trade out of the pick and someone could jump up to 5 and take Mikel. The Nets have desperately needed to add shooting under Jordi Fernandez. The guy can change a player's shot profile. He can change a player's usage. Yegor, big off-ball guy in his rookie year. We'll see how that develops. What MPJ was able to do as an off-ball, yet like usage demanding kind of fulcrum of an offense, which, I wrote about in depth last season. I'm just so excited that they got a guy who can bomb from 3, pull-ups, create space. 35% doesn't sound that crazy, but it was on huge volume and difficult attempts, and he had really strong shooting priors, even though he shot like pretty well from the line, from 3, dealing with a back, taking really difficult attempts. He was a good shooter before the NCAA. If you look at the free throw stuff, if you look at the 3-point stuff, and the Nets, Jordi just has not had this kind of talent to work with yet. Not saying Yegor, for example, is not talented. Not saying he's not talented as a shooter. This is a different level though. And that every Nets fan should be excited about that. Listen, I've been like doomer on this pod. We've been negative. I think like if you can't get excited about Mikel, like why even tank? Why be in the lottery? Why go through this whole process? I'm not saying that he's Boozer or DP or AJ, but this is a real effing prospect they got here.
Yeah, and I would interject on the shooting thing, like 34.4%. It was 14.7 threes per 100, so huge volume. But I would add in that every draft analyst, scout, executive, people I've talked to throughout the league during this pre-draft process, none of them really had any reservations about his shooting. Like, there is a pretty consensus opinion that he's going to be a good shooter at the NBA level, and he has really high-level shooting potential. And then you add that in with, a lot of the other stuff that he brings to the table. Like, it's not just the shooting. Like, he's a bigger guard, obviously. He has good positional size, but there are some highlights where he has some real juice going downhill. He has a 40-inch vertical. Like, he can go up and dunk on people. He can, split double teams. Like, he has real downhill juice to complement that shooting ability. And then the passing highs were really high. And that's why, I've gotten some questions about why do you have Mikel number 1 on your Nets board ahead of guys like Keaton Wagler, Darius Akov, Kingston Flemings, whoever else you want to say. And really, it was just simple for me. I think the highs that Mikel reached were higher than those other guys. Now, there's questions about how consistently we'll be able to reach those highs, but in terms of the shot making, the passing, the at rim finishing, which I think stands to get better if he adds some weight, like all of those things, I think you can see them really getting to a level where he has a really high upside for this Nets team. And ultimately, at the number, 6 pick in a draft, like that's really all you can ask for. And this is regarded as a deep draft, but they come away in a player, with Mikel Brown Jr., who I think that Nets fans should really be able to get excited about. I mean, the Nets took a swing. And look, I'm not going to act like there's no risks associated with this pick. As I said, like the process that he plays with is going to have to get better. But Sean Marks did say when we spoke to him after they made this pick that he feels like Mikel's a high field player, and he really feels confident in his ability to process the game, play with pace, do all those things. And that is a question about him. So it seems like, Sean went out of his way to say that unprompted. So it seems like that's not as much of a reservation on the Nets end.
I think if you feel that way, and I'm not saying, his little posturing, do they really believe that? I'm not getting into that. But if you really believe that, then, and you don't believe that the back is an issue for Mikel, he should be top 4 or 5 on this board, because the worry with him is that the Morey ball, like living at the rim, living beyond 3, provides somewhat of an offensive floor because you know that these shots are coming from high value areas. The worry is that a wonky process, some of the decision making going haywire, turnover prone as a lead guard, diminishes some of that high floor. It's not like these guards like a Damian Lillard that in his prime was living in those high range areas and was making threes and was getting downhill. He mostly protected the ball. And that, in addition to all of his other great skills, like he's a Hall of Famer, but like if Mikel's process isn't there, then the floor isn't high. Well, if you think he's high feel and you're not worried about the back, this is like a really enticing lead guard prospect. And he's going to be a lead guard. And then, once you get further down the line, you can think, okay, maybe Yegor like insulates some of his more scatterbrain decision-making moments. Like, we know Yegor's processing. I've had questions with it. Above average for a teenager for sure. Excited to see him grow. And like, again, I just keep coming back to this might be the best fit for Mikel. Like, think about the guard talent Jordy's had to work with in his 2 years and how much he's squeezed out of said talent. It's a lot.
Jordy is going to be fired up to get a guy like Mikel Brown Jr. in the door. And I think you probably saw that if you saw the video of the Nets War Room. I do want to talk about some of the other qualities that I think attracted the Nets to Mikel Brown Jr. And then also some of the guys that they passed up to make this pick, namely Darius Akov Jr., a player who a lot of people thought should have been the pick for the Nets here at 6. So we'll get into all that when we continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing software. Guys, the best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working towards the same goal, and that's true in sports just like it is in business. Guys, look at any of the NBA teams that have won titles, had sustained success. You look at the Warriors dynasty, the Bulls back in the 90s. More recently, look at the Knicks winning a title this year. Look at how all those teams had guys who were willing to sacrifice, buy into their roles, really understand what the team needed about them. And one thing that really stands out, how those organizations and those teams got everyone pulling in the same direction. It wasn't just one great player or coach. It was a coordinated effort across the entire organization that made it successful. And great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. All right, coming back from the break, continuing today's Locked On Nets episode, this draft recap episode after the Nets took Mikel Brown Jr. 6th overall, and just going a little bit longer on some of the things that I think attracted the Nets to Mikel Brown Jr. As I said, he checks a lot of the boxes in terms of the on-court profile of things the Nets have prioritized in the past. You could say positional size, shooting, ball handling, the decision-making, like 0.5-second decision-making, like you can say he was a little sloppy, but he has the ability to make some really high-level reads with the ball in his hands as a live dribble passer. So that's also something that's a prioritize. And then also the pass pedigree. Like Mikel's a guy who going into this past season, before he had the back issues at Louisville, was regarded as, a top 5 pick. Like he was up there with those other guys like, AJ DeBonsa, Cam Boozer, Darren Peters, even if maybe slightly behind, but like he was in that class. He gave AJ DeBonsa a real run for his money at the, it was Team USA or the Nike Hoop Summit or something along those lines. And Sean Marks said that they had followed Mikel Brown Jr. back to those days. So they've been scouting him for a while. So he checks all those boxes. And then I think we could all have a good laugh about the personality aspect of this. Like he's a Sean Marks type of guy in that regard. Like he is a great kid. I think as soon as he called Sean Mr. Marks during the during one of the meetings, they might have sent the ticket in right there, right after he said that. I've heard him say Mr. Marks like 5 times already.
I haven't heard that one from anyone else. Yeah, very bashful kid, very polite, all the stuff. And that's why the Nets met with him 3 times. I mean, it's part of it. And I'm not, the older I get, the more I really just believe in these guys have to work hard and be like, you look at the kinds of guys that are on teams that win championships. The Nets are nowhere near that yet. But I get why they do all this intel. And does it sometimes lead them to the wrong conclusions? Do we all sometimes wish there was a bit more tenacity, guys willing to, you don't have to be Isaiah Stewart, but inch a little bit closer over there? Like, sure. That being said, there was obviously a little bit of questioning around Mikel Brown Jr. Like the maturity is a buzzword you heard from some people. His father, a bit of a hoverer during the process, was commenting on message boards for his Adidas AAU team. Nets wanted to check that out and make sure, we know the kid we're getting in this building. We know the family, all this and that. And, I don't blame them for doing that because the talent is also there. So then when you talk to him and you see kind of the whole package come together, it's a pick that you can believe in. And I guess we'll talk about Joshua Jefferson too, but man, it feels a lot different than last year.
Oh yeah. Much different vibe compared to last year's draft. And I would say also, last thing on, the personality standpoint for Mikel, that's something that I asked Sean Marks about, and he gave a pretty long answer about it. And it's not just that Mikel, was a great kid in their meetings and they like, his IQ and his maturity and all that stuff. Like that's part of it. But also he said, as a teammate, like all the things that they've heard about him is that he really gets along with his teammates. Like he is kind of an extrovert in that regard. He goes out and he tries to, have relationships with guys off the court. He tries to bring guys together in the locker room. And Sean said that that's important and can't go undervalued, in the NBA, the importance of having a cohesive unit, a synergistic unit that gets along on and off the court. And Mikel, I've heard about numerous points. Like that is, a big part of his personality. Like he said, he's a man of the people. Like that's the quote that he used during his press conference. So I think that's a big part of it. I do want to talk now about the guy that they passed up, Darius Akov Jr., who was the other big contender. A lot of people thought, the top guard in this draft outside of Darren Peterson. And I got endless questions from Nets fans about whether or not they would take him, endless takes from Nets fans saying he should be the guy. And I've been pretty consistent throughout this pre-draft process that I'll believe it when I see it. I did not think that they were going to pick Darius Akov Jr. And he never really seemed like a Nets guy to me. And we can talk about why, but Mikel just always struck me as more of a Nets guy. But do you have any level of surprise that the Nets passed on Darius Akov Jr.?
No, I don't. And I also don't really understand the belief from many people that they're clearly going to regret this and that they're clearly in different tiers as prospects. I get that Akov was super productive and had an awesome college season. That doesn't automatically, mean NBA translatability. I think he'll be good. I don't really see a world in which these guys were not at least close as prospects, if not Mikel outpacing Akov. Akov could have the better career. I'm just never gonna think that it was a situation where the Nets took the obviously less hopeful, less inspiring prospects. Like it just never seemed that way to me. I think a lot of things worked in Darius's favor in terms of perception, like the numbers, which he was great. He was great in college. Like he shot 44% from three. Do I think that's going to happen in the pros? I mean, we'll see. The John Calipari boost, the Kentucky guard stimulus, the performances in the SEC tournament, the highlights being what they were, some of the back stuff with Mikel. I just don't think all of that is representative of this difference in tiers as prospects. And I think like it's totally within reason and not at all controversial that the Nets preferred MBJ. Are we gonna do MBJ? I'm not. I don't like it.
MBJ. I mean,
It sounds. It's now while Porter's still on the team.
We already got an MPJ.
I'm not doing that.
Like Michael B. Jordan, that might be MBJ. I don't know. Like let Mikel be his own guy.
I'm going Mikel.
And and on the Akov note, I mean, I think Darius Akov has a really good chance to be a very good player in the NBA, and I think that you can argue that he has somewhat of a safe floor just due to his offensive ability and how good he is on that end. But I would say that the reason that I had him behind some of these other guys like Wagler or Brown is simply that the defensive tape just scared the absolute shit out of me. Like it was really, really, really bad. I went and watched a number of full games of Darius Akov Jr. and he was shouldering a really heavy burden at Arkansas offensively, but the defensive effort was just not there. The engagement was not there. And just like the expectation that he'll just flip that switch at the NBA level where all of the scorers are better and it's a lot harder to defend. I was just a little skeptical of that. And you heard
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and just you heard that Sean Marks spoke about some of the things that attracted the Nets to Mikel, and they said the positional size, the athleticism, the defensive capability that he does have, the positional versatility that all of that lends, all these things that I think make him a little bit more of a malleable skill set and can open some different rebuild paths to you moving forward in a way that Akov just doesn't really. And Akov might end up being better, but with the upside that Mikel has and with some of the other, factors that I just spoke about in terms of the malleability of the skill set, I don't at all have a problem with them taking Mikel over Akov here.
Yeah, I also just want to add Darius isn't an ironclad, bulletproof offensive prospect. It's not like he's like the best offensive prospect in the draft. It's not like he's that much, I don't think, a clearly better offensive prospect than Mikel. I think there's certain rigidity to the way he plays. This isn't dump on Akov hour. I'm not doing that. But, I just want to get the idea out there that it's not like the Nets passed on the clear best offensive player in the draft because of defensive concerns. There's defensive concerns are very valid, but it wasn't a black and white case like that. There is the issue of is he 44% 3-point shooter, carried a ton of his offensive value in college. I don't know about the shooting priors before that. I don't think they suggested dominance to that level. There is the lack of getting to the line. It's not that they passed on, Jokic offensive impact because of poor defense. I just don't see it like that. So there's also a ridiculous amount to love about MBJ's offensive profile.
Thought we just said we're not doing MBJ.
I started it. I know I started it. So I know I'm not going to do that in the future, but yeah, I don't think it was a 1-to-1 sort of thing. And hey, the Nets might regret it. I think we'll remember for a long time that it went Wagler, Mikel, Akov, Flemings, and any order of those guys wouldn't really surprise me. Flemings could be the guy they regret passing on. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So yeah, these guys, it's a lot of pressure to make these picks, and the Nets stood on what they wanted to do. And, it'll be exciting to see how their careers play out. That being said, Akov's going to have a 31-11 game in November. So just everyone be ready for that.
Yeah, that's definitely coming. And, he's definitely that level of player. But Mikel, I think, checks a lot of the boxes that I think are, kind of some of the things that do play well at the NBA level if, some of the decision making, some of those other things can come around. So I do want to talk briefly about what we think fair expectations are for Mikel this coming season, and then also hit on Joshua Jefferson, the player the Nets took with the number 28 pick. So we'll get into all that when we close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, workplace chaos can show up fast. That's where Indeed Sponsored Jobs comes in. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on skills, experience, and location. Guys, finding the right person can make all the difference, whether it's building a business or building a winning team. Guys, you look at all the teams that have been successful throughout the years. Look at the Nets when they made it to the finals in 2001 and 2002. Some of the best moves organizations make aren't always the splashiest ones. Sometimes it's finding the right person who fits exactly what the team needs at the right moment. That's what the Nets got. They brought in Jay Kidd. They brought in Kenyon Martin. They brought in Richard Jefferson, Keith Van Horn. All of that synergy worked out, and they made 2 runs to the finals. And that's what stood out to me there, and it's the same idea behind Indeed Sponsored Jobs, helping connect organizations with candidates who are the right fit right from the start. So spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, that's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? That's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Guys, the World Cup is here, and it's the most electric time in soccer. On Kalshi, you can trade every single playoff game on your way to the championship. Let's take a look at the tournament landscape. France is trading at an 18% probability to win it all, meaning a $100 trade pays out $478 if they take the title. As the tournament heats up, those numbers move in real time, and you can buy in or out at any time. Meanwhile, Spain is trading at a 14% probability to win it all, meaning a $100 trade pays out $674 if they take the title. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in or out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. All right, coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode with Lucas Kaplan, recapping Brooklyn's first round of the 2026 NBA draft and closing it out on Mikel Brown Jr. I just do want to talk a little bit about expectations for him this coming season, because we talk a lot about star upside. We talk a lot about how exciting this pick is. Highest pick of the Brooklyn era, highest pick in 16 years. Nets need a face of the franchise. Fans are looking for buzz and excitement and all that. And with that, I can already feel the expectations getting high for Mikel Brown Jr. out of the gate. And I'm not saying he won't be able to meet them, but I am saying that he is very much a developmental type of prospect. Like, it's going to take a little bit of time for him to iron out some of these issues that he has in terms of the decision-making, the turnovers, the shot selection, all of that. Like, when I talk to NBA decision makers, scouts, analysts, like these people, like that has been something that has been emphasized to me of like, it's going to take a little bit of time for Mikel Brown Jr. And it's going to take time for all of these guys. But some of the issues that we saw Mikel have last season with him not getting to play that much at Louisville and just kind of the decision-making woes, that stuff doesn't necessarily get easier at the NBA level, where defenses are doing more things. The guys are bigger, more athletic. The windows are, smaller. So I want to emphasize to the Nets fans, it's great to be excited about this. It's fair to be excited about this, but temper expectations out of the gate a little bit, because I do think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for Mikel here.
Yeah, especially because, when there's a world in which the three-point shot isn't going down right away, and he has struggled with mid-range counters, the in-between game is something that he's really going to have to work on if he's going to work his way up to being, 20 points a night, having counters to counters. The adjustment finishing at the rim, even if his back truly is healthy and ready to go, and I imagine it is, might be a little bit rough. Again, NBA rim protectors are really good, and it's very likely that he's not going to be plus offensive impact in his first year. It's possible. I mean, if he is, then, the Nets are really working with something special here. But there's also going to be moments where the Nets are trying to win games and he doesn't play down the stretch, and it's going to be infuriating for a lot of fans, and I'll probably be annoyed too because I'm going to tune in to watch Mikel. And like I said 2 days ago, that day when Saraf plays 20 minutes and Mikel gets 10, it's coming. Or a day when he's not in the starting lineup when you think he should be. So expectations, I mean, flashes, right? Big games. Like, I think I need to watch a little bit more of his tape and kind of sit with it before I get into like specific skills and stuff like that. Like last year I landed on Traore's ball handling in tight spaces and kind of fixated on that through the year. So I think I'll find something like that granular with Mikel. I don't know if you have anything quite yet.
No, it's really just the decision making and the process that he plays with, having more of a plan on some of his drives. And that's why I said, like, that stuff that's going to take a little bit of time. Like we heard from Yegor last year when he's trying to make the transition to being a little bit of doing some on ball stuff at the NBA level. Like, the windows are smaller. Like these guys are so big, they can cover multiple guys at one time. Like it is an adjustment. So we'll see with Mikel. I'm going to have plenty of more talk about Mikel in the coming week, in weeks, you'll be on for more of that. But I do want to hit on Joshua Jefferson quickly because the Nets, as part of the Julius Randle trade that we talked about last night, moved up from number 33 to number 28. And they take Jefferson, a 6'8" forward out of Iowa State, who I have heard a lot of good things about throughout this pre-draft process. Older player, going to be 23 years old in November, but a big, strong, physical player who thinks the game at a really, really high level. And that is something that we've heard the Nets speak about ad nauseum, over the last year and change, the 0.5-second decision-making and kind of the NBA trending in that direction. Jefferson is not a perfect prospect at all. That's why he fell to number 28. There's shooting concerns. There's some athleticism concerns, things along those lines. But he's a guy who I feel pretty good about, being a pretty competent NBA player just due to the size, the strength, and the decision-making that he has displayed. Like a really interesting prospect as kind of like this playmaking forward. In the Nets, I think, we see them, use these hub bigs in a lot of ways to open a lot of playmaking opportunities for them. And I think that he'll fit into that really well. But Lucas, what do you think about Jefferson there at number 28?
I think the Nets, Sean Marks in the front office might have unlocked a new level of BMI querying in prospects and trades. I mean, as you tweeted, dude, Randall and Josh Jeff in 2 days.
Where's the beef, man? Bring the beef in.
I don't know if they were even like allowed to acquire players like this. And then like you add the obvious sell to the Nets, the passing feel, the 0.5 decision making. This is clearly like a fun prospect for all involved, fans, us, and the team. And 22 years old, 4 productive college years. You would think dude has a chance to play right away, right? Like,
oh yeah, for sure. Like I think that's one of the attractive things about him.
Right. And the Nets want to be good. And like, he is the same age as Noah Clowney, more or less.
I think he's older, isn't he?
He's probably a little older.
He's going to be 23 in November.
In November. Okay. So he's probably like a year older, I think.
Yeah.
Tough, big battle for minutes right there. 2 kind of different players. I know some people who think he's going to shoot it. He didn't shoot a ton of jumpers or threes, I should say, in his college career, but ended at 34.5% on 3 a game, which were both career highs, 70% or better from the line his last 2 years. There's just a lot to work with here. And for a number 28 overall pick, like it's hard to do better. The guy was getting lotto buzz for a decent amount of the year. Sean Marks said they had their eye on him all year long, even from last year, that when they traded up 5 spots as part of the Julius Randle deal, it was not made lightly, and they were thinking about Joshua Jefferson. So another like kind of trend bucking pick from last year but the guy still does a lot of what they like, and I'm really excited to see what positions he is in the offense. Like,
yeah.
But what's funny is last year they initiated all that dribble handoff with the 5s at the top of the key. And this year, I don't know where Jefferson will be on the depth chart. They have 2 4s, 2 power forwards guys you would expect to play next to centers that do that stuff in Randall and Jefferson. So I'm it's crazy to say to feel relieved and take a breath and be like, man, there's a lot of shit I'm looking forward to from the Nets this season. But I feel that way,
Yeah, well, you've been calling for size, strength, physicality. I mean, they added Randall and Jefferson. I mean, those guys look like grown men out there, obviously. And like, I don't know, like, what should the over under be on, forward positional group trips, like those guys taking Noah Clowney to, like, 5 Guys or TGI Fridays or something. Like, go shovel some of your food onto Noah Clowney's plate and let him, like, gain a little bit of that beef there, because, man, that is a contrast from Jefferson's physicality and body and Randall's to a guy like Clowney. But yeah, I mean, like, as you said, there's going to be some competition there in that forward room. And I really like, what they did with Jefferson there, because I do think that he's a guy who I could see coming in and contributing. And I do think that, he just has a lot of redeeming qualities. And it is a little bit of I don't know if I'd say zag, but, like, as you said, like, the criticism of Sean Marks in this front office has been the kind of beanpole archetypes, the skinny finesse guys, and bring in Julius Randle, bringing in Joshua Jefferson, committing to Day'Ron Sharpe seemingly as the starting center, a little bit more strength, size, physicality. So I like all that. That's about all I got here, Lucas. Anything that you want to add about this first round of the draft for the Nets? It was, I think, a pretty resounding positive of a night for a Nets team that came out of the 2025 draft facing a lot of harsh criticisms.
And feel better about them now after the last 2 days, including the Randall trade, than I did before. And I really don't think they're done yet. Maybe not earth-shattering moves in the trade market or free agency, but some stuff. I mean, listen, my biggest complaint and fear with them was, like, they're too married to what they have on the roster. It took them a long time to sell guys, even that we knew they were going to sell. Why was Nick still on the team? Are these rookies going to dictate who they draft? Like, no way, right? And the answer was no. And so now I just think the interesting thing is, boy, there's a lot. Like a Wolf, Jefferson. Again, we'll see how good Jefferson is, number 28 overall pick. But Wolf, Jefferson, Clowney. And not to mention the guards, like Traore, Ben. Where the hell is Drake Powell finding minutes on this team next year if they want to win games?
That's going to be the episode, I think, that we might need to do, like, tomorrow or Thursday or Friday. It's just like, how do all these guards coexist? Like, what does this mean for some of these other guys? We'll get into all that. But yeah, a good point by you, and something that we'll probably do a full episode on. But Lucas, appreciate you taking the time. The Nets have the number 43 pick tomorrow. Who knows if they'll even make that? I don't know if they can, have the room to bring another young guy in, but we'll have plenty of more draft coverage of this. We'll have plenty more Fan Take Friday episodes to dig into all this stuff. But if you guys don't already, go follow Lucas on Twitter. Go follow all of his stuff at Nets Daily. And yeah, man, I appreciate taking the time, and you will definitely be back on soon. That does it for today's episode of Locked On Nets. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk with Lucas. If you do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy my content, take a second right now. Smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you could do to engage is much appreciated. We got a lot more draft coverage coming up. We're going to be getting into a lot more offseason coverage, free agency trades, all that. So I'll have coverage of all that and more when I'm back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.